today's session is on job descriptions. So I'm going to talk about how to build job descriptions in TouchStone, and then I'm also going to talk about how to use them as a management tool. So we're on the dashboard now, and as everyone knows, this is the first thing that you see when you log in. So let's go over here to the org chart. This is how you get to job descriptions. Last week, we talked about how to build and use the organization chart. But for now, I'm going to add a position to the chart so we can talk about job descriptions. So to add a box to the chart, you click these little three dots below the box that you want to add the position under. So I'm just going to go add, and now this new position title appears. It will always appear as untitled. So to add a position name, you can click the three dots again and choose edit, or you can select the box and it takes you to the job description. So this is what a job description looks like when it hasn't been built yet. So right here, if I click this little gray edit pencil, then you'll see the title position open, and you just delete untitled and you put in the name of the position. Let's call this sales assistant, and then you save. So you can edit or create these titles from the face of the organization chart by hitting those little three dots in the bottom right corner, or if you select the position, it will open. You click this little edit pencil and add the position title here. Right underneath the position title is where the objective field is. So when I click this little edit pencil, this field opens. So this is meant to be the purpose of the position. Or it can also be the key objective or the key result. Usually this is a sentence or a phrase, but it could be a paragraph if you want it to. So I type in the name of the objective and then I just hit save. So let's go to the org chart and I'll show you a few example objectives. So I'm just clicking this position, and this is a built job description. This is what it looks like when all the processes have been linked to it. And in this objective, it says create marketing strategies and objectives and manage the sales department. So something really clear and specific like that. Let's go look at another one. This is a more elaborate objective. So it's got the purpose statement, report on the company's financial status, manage human resources and employees in support of the entire company. Then I've also got education experience requirements with that listed, and then skills. So you can use this field for more than just a simple statement or objective. You can put hiring information in it like this, or you can keep it simple and straightforward. So let's go back here to this example position. So the job description's got two sections to it. There's strategic and tactical. The processes or the work that this position is accountable for appears under the strategic or tactical section. Strategic is for work that's higher level in nature. So it's strategy work, building things, reporting, and managerial work. So typically work like that is done by a managerial position. So a sales assistant position like this one may not have any strategic processes. But if this was a managerial position, then all of the strategic and managerial processes would be listed here. Tactical is the technical work. So a sales assistant, for example, probably would have mostly technical work and very little strategic, whereas a managerial position would have mostly strategic and less tactical. There's a more elaborate definition for both of these in the resource center over here. And we also give examples. Another tip is that on the 4 key functions over here, the strategic processes usually are here in guiding the business. So let's talk about how to add processes to the job description. So right here is a toolbar item called Add Existing Process. This will allow you to look over at your 4 key functions and link processes from the 4 key functions over here to this position. This toolbar item allows you to add processes directly to the job description. And then those processes that you add directly to the job description are also added to the 4 key functions. So let's go through an example of both of these. If I click Add Existing Process, now I'm looking over at the 4 key functions, and I'm going to look for processes that the sales assistant is responsible for. The first question is this in the strategic or the tactical section of the job description? So you choose strategic or tactical. Then you hit the sub-function drop-down. Now I'm looking at all of my sub-functions from the 4 key functions. And you can see them by function. So running, this is doing, guiding. So when doing this, you want to think about where does the work of a sales assistant, where is it going to be on the 4 functions? Generally, it would be here in getting the business. So if you go to the getting the business sub-functions and you choose a sub-function, then you'll see the processes that you have created in that sub-function over on the 4 key functions. So from this view, you just select the processes that you want to add to the position, and then you hit Save in this bottom right corner. And now the processes will be listed, the ones that you've selected. Once you've added processes from one sub-function, you can go back, add existing process, again, choose strategic or tactical, choose the sub-function, go to the sub-function that the work is in. If you're not sure, you can just select a sub-function and look, is the sales assistant accountable for any of this? If it's no, go back, look here, any of this. If it's no, or there's just one process, choose it and hit Save. So when building the job descriptions, if you've got your 4 key functions list done, this becomes really easy. So if I've spent time, or you've spent time over here in the 4 functions listing out all the processes, and they don't necessarily have to all be documented, but is at least listed, then you can link them all to the correct positions on the org chart pretty quickly. Once you've added all the processes you can find from the 4 key functions over here, if you look at the job description and you say to yourself, well, something's missing, there's a process missing, then you can go to this toolbar item, Add New Process, and now it's prompting me for the process name, so you'd put in the name of the new process that you want to add. Then same idea, strategic or tactical section of the job description. And then lastly, TouchStone's asking you, where does this new process you're about to add live, or where should it live on the 4 key functions? So even though we're adding processes directly to this job description, TouchStone's still forcing you to keep the 4 functions as the master list of everything. So generally, think about the position. It's a sales position, so most likely this work would be in the sales sub-function. So choose sales and then hit Save. This is a warning message that's telling you the process name you're about to add already exists. So if you see this, it's just calling to your attention that I've already got a process with this name. If that's the case, you get this warning message. I would go here to search and search for that position title, and then you'll find it on the 4 key functions. So this is just a way of making sure that you're not adding duplicate processes or processes with the same titles. So the job description is built either by linking processes from the 4 functions here or adding them directly. Another reason you might add them directly to a job description is if you have an employee who's not an administrator in TouchStone and you want them to build their own job description and then document their own processes. You could tell them to go to the organization chart. An administrator is going to have to add their position, so at least add the new position box, and then tell them to log into TouchStone, go to their position on the org chart, and then use this toolbar item to add their processes. And then they can go and document those processes. So in that situation, there's no reason for this employee doing this really to know having built the 4 key functions or really know what's in there. If they go to add a process title and they're prompted for a duplicate, then they can search and find it, or you as their manager or the administrator can go and search and find it and then link it. Another way this is used is just to verify that all the processes are there. When you look at the processes in this view, so by position, then you're seeing it in a different way. You're not seeing it in groups on the 4 functions, you're seeing it by position, and that sometimes illuminates positions that are missing. It allows you to see them a little bit better. So some other functionality on the job description page is this print send. So this is the printing feature for the job description. With this toolbar item, you can print the job description, you can export it to Word, you can print a PDF of the job description, or you can also print or export to Word the operating manual for this position. So if you need a paper manual for whatever reason, this is the way to get it. So if you choose this, TouchStone's going to launch Microsoft Word, which is opening down here below. And then you're going to see a title page. And then you're going to see the job description. I'm just going to move this over so people can see it. So this is the title page. Then you'll see the job description for the position. And then you're going to see all the tools inside of every process. So what this feature is doing is it's printing the job description, which is like a table of contents for the operating manual for this position. And then it's going to print all the tools inside of every process, work plans, checklists, everything. And then once it's in Word, you can do page breaks and get rid of pages you don't want. And then if you save it as a PDF, then you've got this external manual. One of the benefits of TouchStone, one of the key benefits, is that everything within it is up to date, the most current version, and there's no copies of it anywhere. So it's the most current version, accessible over in the cloud, which means anyone who has access to the internet can access it if they have the right permissions. Once you start exporting things, you're creating multiple versions. So just, keep that in mind. I feel like the best way for people to see their job descriptions, study their processes, access them is through the dashboard on a mobile device. But having said that, if you do need a paper version, this is a great way to get it. To remove processes from the job description, if I hover, all I'm doing is hovering over the process, and you can see to the right here, there's this remove button. When I click the remove button, I'm going to have, one chance to change my mind up here, and then once I say OK, then that process is removed from the job description. So it's not deleted from TouchStone, it's just removed from this job description. That's why it says remove and not delete. So to delete a process in its entirety, you'll need to go to the 4 functions and delete it there. If you do that, it's going to automatically remove it from all the job descriptions it's linked to. It's going to delete it from those as well as deleting it from the 4 key functions and TouchStone altogether. You can also reorder processes just by dragging and dropping them up and down just like this. So that's the basic functionality of the job descriptions. It's nice to build all your job descriptions. So if you haven't gone through that exercise yet, I think it's a really good thing to do. Even if you're in your 4 functions documenting processes and working your way through it, if you haven't built your job descriptions, there's really no reason not to do that. Once you take all those processes and link them to positions on the org chart, you're assigning accountability and you're starting to see the results or the accountabilities of each position. Furthermore, it then helps you to implement all of this better, because I can say to a salesperson or to an advertising position or to any employee in the organization, go to your job description in TouchStone. There are your processes. They're not having to weed through the 4 functions, and they don't really even need to know about the 4 key functions. All they need to know is, this is my job description. Building the job descriptions also then makes this dashboard functionality usable. So every position that I would assign someone to in account administration, if a control panel has been assigned, like you see here, when the person selects that position, they're going to see all the processes from their job description. So the control panel is an exact copy of what's on the job description over here on the org chart. So everything that the manager of administration and finance is responsible for, once the job description's been built over here on the org chart, then they can see and access those processes from the dashboard. Here on the dashboard, it's not just strategic and tactical. You can make these groups too and organize the processes into groups. If I was to go and delete a process or remove it from a job description over here, it's going to take that process out of the control panel for that position. And the opposite is true. If you add a process to the job description, it will then appear on the dashboard in that control panel. Let's go back here to the 4 key functions, and I'm going to select this position, bookkeeper. You can also drag and drop from strategic to tactical. So I just took this and moved it up and down. So if you put processes in strategic and now that you've heard it defined, you want to move it around, it's just drag and drop from one to the other. So let's talk about how to use job descriptions, because this is, in my opinion, one of the best management tools a manager could ever have. So I'm going to talk about how to use the job descriptions as a management tool, and then I'm going to highlight 5 processes from our process library that I feel like are the 5 must-have processes for a manager. So managerial work that every manager needs to have, and all 5 of those processes you can download from our libraries today and edit them if you want to, and then implement them and have your managers start to use them. Managers fail because they don't have structure. They don't have training. They don't know how to be a manager. They've never been trained in how to be a manager. So either they've learned it from someone they've watched, or they've just made it up as they went along. So some people naturally are really good managers, and other people aren't. And the difference is, some people have special skills around that, and they're just meant to kind of do that work, and that's pretty rare. But the difference between a bad and a good manager is solely their training and their tools that they're using to be an effective manager. So how the job description is a management tool is twofold. One, it's used for training. So I, as a manager, will use this job description to train my employees. So in its simplest form, it's a checklist of what their accountabilities are, which is great for me to know as a manager. But it's also what they need to learn to be successful in their position. So oftentimes, if you don't have structure, you don't have job descriptions, you don't have documented processes, when an employee is hired, there's a need that you hire them for, but then when they start to work, they're kind of being trained by everyone, watching what they're supposed to be doing. They're making notes about what they're being told to do, and it just kind of morphs into them, either being successful or not. So the job description, again, in its simplest form, is this list of what that employee needs to be trained on, and it's extremely useful for a manager. So if we go here to an example on the dashboard of this, I'm going to look at this position, bookkeeper, here through management review. I'm seeing all of Mary's processes that are from her job description. So this is the job description. On the dashboard here, I made training weeks, and some of you have seen this example before. So as the manager, I'm using the job description to organize Mary's training and decide what she's going to learn each week until she's learned everything in 5 weeks. It becomes a checklist for what she needs to be trained on, and shows the progression of her training. So once she's learned accounts payable, I put these little green check marks here, and then that tells me she's done with this. Now she's got to learn accounts receivable. That's next. When she's done with this process, I hit the trained button, and now she's got a green check mark next to this process. And then we go to week 2 in this process she needs to learn. So you can see, even if all the documentation isn't done for every one of these processes, it's still useful as a manager to be able to check off that I've discussed this with her and that she's learned it. Now, it also brings on a whole other dynamic where if the processes aren't documented, then maybe Mary helps document them while she's learning it. If they are documented, it's even better because I can sit her in front of her dashboard as her manager and say, we're going to learn this week. We're going to learn the financial statement preparation. Let's go through the steps. Let me show you. Watch this video. Look at the work plan. So for new employee training, job descriptions are fantastic, and I hope you can see why. If you think about not having something like this, you can see the pitfalls of new employee training. So this is one of the reasons why job descriptions for training are fantastic management tools. Another way to use job descriptions as a manager is for ongoing training. So once Mary is fully trained in how to be the bookkeeper, let's say that she's having an issue with the budget. So she didn't do it on time. It wasn't done correctly. I, as the manager, can say, hey, Mary, great job on the budget, but it's missing some things. Could you go back and review the process and then make changes to it based on what the process is saying? Or if she's done a great job on the budget, I can say, gee, Mary, the budget's amazing this year. You've added these extra things to it, which I think are great. Let's go take those ideas that you had and put them into the process so that next year when we do the budget, all those new things are included. So there's a training and correction side of this, but there's also an innovation side of this. So because we have this job description, because there's the documentation, I'm able to point Mary to things she needs to do better, and I'm also able to innovate this process and make the process better. And that is a manager's primary accountability, getting results through other people, making the processes better, and allowing the company to flourish and grow because we're focused on innovation. We're focused on getting things done correctly, but we're also focused on innovation. If this innovation isn't captured, like in this example with budget creation, what happens is your employees are learning with sweat equity, or your time is another way to say it. So Mary may be fantastic, the bookkeeper, and it's taken her an entire year to learn all these things and all the pitfalls, and you've spent a lot of money on her learn by mistakes, and then when she leaves, all that leaves. So you're not capturing your own intellectual property. Your employees are gaining knowledge and experience. You're paying them to do that, and if you don't capture that into a process, when they leave, it all leaves with them. So ongoing training, another great use for a job description. So let's talk about these top 5 key managerial processes. And then I'm going to weave in how the job description is so essential to the using of these key managerial processes. So these are the 5. There's probably others. I'm sure somebody could point out that one's better than another, but I think these 5 are pretty darn good. And if you're starting with nothing, then I would definitely say start with these 5. So there's one-on-one meetings. I'm going to put this one to the top. One-on-one meetings, that's about communication. So managers need to communicate with their employees about things they're doing well, things they're not doing well, how to be better, not just get more work done, but how they develop as a person. This is where the manager sits down and says, I care about you. So one-on-one meetings. Performance review. This is really important to give people an annual performance review. You can even do 6-month reviews. You can do 3-month reviews. This can be broken down into key performance review, not necessarily only annually, but multiple times throughout the year. performance review doesn't have to be tied to compensation increases. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Key performance indicators. So this is a process that lets me know as a manager what the results are for each employee and for each department. If you can't see the results in numbers, even subjective things can be evaluated. If you can't see those numbers, then it's hard as a manager to know if things are working correctly. As a manager, we want to know that employees are getting their work done, results are happening without having to run around looking at it all. I don't want to have to touch all of their work. I just want to have a way of quantifying if it's successful or not. If you're a micromanager, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and it comes from an honest place. You managers go and they really want to figure out, is it being done? Is it being done? And you insert yourself into that. And by doing that, the message to the employee is, well, I don't trust you. You need me. And what that creates is dependency on you. So as managers, we shouldn't want that. We should want independent employees that sometimes make mistakes. We want to be able to get information about their results without having to look over their shoulders all the time. And then lastly, verbal and written warnings. So I throw this one in here because sometimes it's important to put a line in the sand and say, okay, this is what the business needs. This is what the company needs. And you're not being able to do it. So let's figure out why. And sometimes that requires a formal sit down, whether verbal or written, and a tracking of that. I think, again, as managers, we get so busy. We deal with problems over and over and over again, and there's never any resolution. So good managers use a verbal and written warning process in a way that helps to, in corrective action, but also helps them to motivate their employees to do better. These processes go together with each other. So for example, if I'm doing one-on-one meetings once a month with every employee where I'm sitting down for a half an hour, 45 minutes with that person, I'm going through this process, that then helps me in the performance review. Because if we've been communicating all throughout the year in this process, then this process becomes super easy. The best part about it is there's no surprises. The employee knows exactly what I'm going to say in the review because we've been talking about it. The absolute worst thing as a manager, and I remember the first managerial position I ever had years and years and years ago, I had to do performance reviews, and I had feelings about what the employees were doing and if it was good or not. But when I went to write the comments, it was hard to justify my feeling about the score I gave them. And you all know what I'm talking about, those of you who've done performance reviews and haven't had a process for it. You're not making it up. It's not malicious. It's hard to remember all throughout the year. And when you give an employee an average rating, not excellent or poor, you have to have comments to back that up. And if you don't have real things that you're commenting about, then it makes it all seem fake and not worthwhile. So the performance review is also enhanced by the key performance indicators. The key performance indicators also influence the one-on-one meetings. Because if I'm looking at these indicators and I see a good or a bad result, we're going to talk about it right here. Coaching and training. Did I skip this one? I think I did. Coaching and training, this is a process on how to coach employees, how to coach them through good and bad issues that come up. And then, of course, the verbal written warnings is kind of where you draw your line in the sand. So these 5 processes are over here in Guiding the Business. And you can download them. So I'm in Guiding right now. And you can download them from the library right here. So here, general processes, and then you can find them on this list, and you just tick off the box next to the process title name, and then you hit copy, and those processes will be copied over into your account. Then, if these processes are new to you, you can select them And this is another trick having to do with job descriptions. If I've added these new and I've already built all my job descriptions, you can go right here, link to job description, and you can choose all the managerial positions. Link. So all at one time, you can link this process to all of the managers. So every manager who does performance reviews, link that process to their position. So every process you download new, you could go to the organization chart and you could link them one at a time, but this is a much faster way. Just select the process, go right here, link to job description, and then link it to all the managers' job descriptions. So let's look at each one of these processes and what's in it. So this is the one-on-one meeting process. This is very simple. Over here, there's a work plan, which describes a step-by-step for having the one-on-one meetings. Then there's an agenda form. So what happens is that in this meeting is the manager uses the job description. So now we're going back to the job description. Uses the job description as a way of communicating in these one-on-one meetings. So here in this agenda form, and this is built in the custom form tool. You could also do this in the document tool if you prefer that. Totally up to you. The benefit of it being, well, in either one of these formats, managers can use these on the dashboard. So they can fill out these one-on-one meeting forms and prepare for their one-on-one meetings by completing this agenda form and saving it back to their control panel. And I'll show you that in the end before we end. So this just has the employee's name, date, items to discuss, goals from achieved or not from last period, goals for the next period, identify and resolve any work or personal issues, and then there's like a notes section. So super easy. So all a manager should do is have this agenda meeting form. What I tend to do is just export this to a PDF just so I can look at it alongside the agenda form. This is just going to open here, hopefully. So here's the agenda meeting or the job description. And I just like to see it kind of side by side. And then I go to the dashboard here and I go to my control panel and I'm going to select this one-on-one meeting process. I could look at the work plan to kind of remind myself of how to prepare, but once someone does this a few times, you don't really need to access this unless you're brand new and you're being trained. Go to the agenda form. I could save this as Mary. Then I put items to discuss. I can look at the job description and, oops, it's not in that, it's in this. So I look at the job description. Let's talk about accounts payable this week. So you can choose a process from the job description to focus on. A manager could choose a process from the job description because Mary's having an issue with that process. You could choose a process from the job description because you want to discuss with her how great accounts receivable are going. Collections are wonderful, and you saw that through the key indicators that 50% or 75% of all receivables were collected within the first 30 days. And she did the key performance indicators, so you saw that. So you want to end items discuss. You want to talk about AR results. So this isn't a huge amount of time. The manager uses the job description as a way of deciding what to talk about. I think it's a great idea for there to be a process of the month. So you can do it by position or you can do it by department. And the manager could look at the job the job description and say, we're going to focus on cash flow planning. That's going to be the process of the month. Or department and company innovation is going to be the process of the month. So in your items to discuss, put in the process of the month. And when you meet with Mary that month, you say to her, we're going to focus on department and company innovation. I want everyone to just read through that process and make notes about things they think that could be better about it, improvements we could make to it, how they're using it. And then in the next meeting, you discuss it. And sometimes it's just, wow, this process is great. Other times there's feedback that's given and the manager can go and innovate or make changes to this process. If you do that once a month for 12 months, you're likely to have gone through all the processes on the job description in a year. And that's ideal. I had someone send a message to the help desk the other day, and they were asking opinions on how processes should be innovated. And one of the ideas they had was every January to have everyone sit down and review their processes. Well, that's not a good idea. You don't want to wait until 1 month of the year to innovate all the processes, because what's happening is some of those processes are failing and not being updated and not being used in an entire year in the worst case scenario until that following year when you go to innovate everything. So do it along the way. If there's an issue that you can see, then fix it right away. Another great idea to provide focus is to do a process of the month. Another thing that can happen in this one-on-one meeting is when the results aren't what they should be, the manager can use the job description and use this one-on-one meeting as a way to communicate about it with the employee. So if I've noticed that when Mary did the budget that there were a lot of issues with it, I asked her to fix those issues, and then she never did. And so the issues still exist. I sit down with her in the one-on-one meeting and I say, Mary, let's talk about the budget. What's happening? We discussed 2 weeks ago that you were going to add this and this to it. What's going on? Are you okay? Do you understand exactly what I meant? Let's look at the process together. Let's discuss it. Let's see what's wrong with the process. So what I'm saying is, what's wrong with the process? The results aren't there. Let's talk about what's going on. I'm not saying, Mary, I've told you 50,000 times, you don't listen, you're not accountable, you're being insubordinate, you just don't care. I'm not blaming her. I'm not saying she's terrible. I'm saying what's wrong with the process. And it's a whole different management style to do things this way. If you start to do things this way, things will change overnight. Your employees will start to hear you more. Your employees will respect you more. Your employees will understand that the processes are important. They're important to you. They're important to the company. Therefore, they are important to that employee. Everything will change. The number one reason that people leave their position, they quit, is because of bad management. And there's statistics about this all over the internet. Bad management. Some of us are horrible managers. And there are some people who are just that way and never should be managers, just like there are some people who should never be parents. But most of the time, people can take parenting classes. They can get better. They can go to counseling. Managers are the same. They can be taught management skills. And the job description is one of the key fundamentals of good management. It's the backbone of all of it. So through this lens, you can then start to train your managers, or you as a manager could start to see things in a different way. Your job as the manager is to get results through other people. And the only way to do that clearly and effectively and consciously is to have documented training and processes. So look at the job description when you're doing the one-on-one meetings, and then fill these forms out and just save it. Once you save it back to TouchStone, you can hit this little print button and you can print it, the agenda, so you can bring it to the meeting with you. You can handwrite notes on it if you want and then put them back into TouchStone. If you want to use it directly on the dashboard, you can. Just call up the agenda. Oftentimes I'll have the agenda I've created for that particular meeting. I'll print it and just bring it to the meeting with me. And then I have TouchStone open, and as I'm preparing for the next meeting, I'll create a new agenda form. And this will be, Mary's next one-on-one meeting. And then I'm adding things to this as we're talking and going through it. Or you can handwrite all of that and then put it back into TouchStone. So you're moving from one agenda form to the next, and over the year, you're collecting these agenda forms, and they're all saved here for you. Throughout time, these agenda forms are all here. How this is useful is this one feeds into this one, obviously. But at the end of the year, when I'm doing performance review, I can look back on all these agenda forms. And I can remind myself of the talks that we've had, the things that we've discussed. And that helps when you're coming up with that employee's overall results at the end of the year. It also helps for managers who manage managers. So this person who manages all of these people, or this person who manages these two people. So good management comes from the top down. If the president is committed to this type of management style, using processes, communicating through job descriptions, they're going to want their key managers to be doing the same thing. So I, as the president, could go run a report over here to see these three people's one-on-one meeting agenda forms. First of all, I can verify that they're doing their meetings, and then I can see what they've talked about. So a manager who manages managers needs to make sure the results are happening as well. And by doing things on the dashboard, you make it really easy for your manager to go in and run a report and see that those things are being done. So that's another one of the reasons to do things on the dashboard and then have your manager be able to run reports. So let's go to the next process. I'm going to do it from this view now. So we talked about one-on-one meetings. Let's talk about performance review next. So this is the performance review process, and you can download that from the library just like the other ones. You have two work plans here, which kind of describe how to set up the performance review, the template itself. So this has a setup and procedure. What this is explaining is that you can export the job description to Word, like I did right here. Drag this back over so you can see it. So export it to Word, copy all of this, right-click, copy. I'm not going to do it because it'll take too much time, but right-click, copy, and then you paste it into the template, and then that template can be used right inside the dashboard. So that's one way of doing it, and this work plan goes through and describes how to do that. You only have to create the performance review template once. So if I have a salesperson, I can cut and paste it into the form, and then once I save it back to TouchStone, well then it's there for all time unless the work on the job description changes. So what's happening is the job description itself is becoming, the work on it is becoming the performance review. So this is yet again another reason why these job descriptions are so useful as management tools. The performance review template is these processes on a scale of 1 to 5, and I'm reviewing Mary. I'm giving her a 1, a 5, a 0, whatever ratings I'm giving her for each of these processes, and then I'm writing in comments. So I'll show you an example of one. This one's done in the document tool. So this is the performance review. This one was just cut and pasted into the document tool. It's got a rating system, 1 to 5, unsatisfactory to excellent. And then here's the work from the job description. It's listed here in the work listing. I give the grade. This is all live now. So this is 3. I give her a 3. And then I put in my comments right here. So the processes from the job description: budget for materials weekly, produce weekly management reports, manage the installers, answer the phone, close and open the office. All the work from the job description is here on the performance review, and I'm giving a grade and I'm giving it a rating. Now you can have other areas on or other factors in the performance review, like goals for next year and things like that. And you'll see in our template, there's a couple example templates right here. You'll see some fields for that. You can also do the performance reviews right here with the custom form tool, and you'll find these templates when you download the library process. So this just has work from the job description. So I put in budgeting right here, and then I give her a grade, and then I put in comments. And then I do the second work listing. The next thing I'm going to rate that person on, sales, follow-up. And you take it directly from the job description, give a rating, and then write comments. So this is another way to do it. Once this is saved right like this, then you can print it right here. And it creates a PDF. So when you see two examples of things in the library processes, one in the custom form and then one in the document tool, it's just giving you options. So you either use it here as a document or use it here. In fact, you can even use it as an uploaded file. So I'll show you that example. So I click the form here, I hit View File. Now this performance review form is opening down here in Word. So here's the performance review form. I could cut and paste. I didn't copy it, but you can cut and paste the work listing from the job description right here. So from job description. Again, you only have to do this once for each position, because if I do this for the bookkeeper, then next year I just access this same master document and then I fill it out for the following year. So this whole cutting and pasting of the work listing only needs to happen once. So I give a grade and comments, and then here's some of those other factors. So this is like education and training, the current position, has taken during the review period, things for next year. You can do general factors like this, attitude, dependability, all of that. And then accomplishments, most successful job accomplishments since last performance period. So a few extra fields like this can be used as well. So let's say I filled this out for Mary. I go File, Save As. Now I'm saving this back to my computer because these changes aren't happening in TouchStone. This is in Word now. So once I've saved that document, then I'd save this as Mary. And then I go down here to Upload Completed Document. Then I find that document and I hit Open. Okay, and then I save it. So now this performance review done January 30th is now uploaded to TouchStone. If we go back here and look across here at the saved, we see it right here. So when the following year rolls around, 2021, I could view this if I want to, just to remind myself of what happened last year. And then I would go back to the master document again. I would click it, open it, fill it out for 2021, and then save it. So a record of all the performance reviews over time are done here. When something's in Word, too, and you've filled it out like this, you could print it, have Mary sign it, scan it back in, and then re-upload it that way as well. So just because this is a Word document doesn't mean I can't go here to the Uploaded Files tool and upload a PDF to the Uploaded Files tool. So the performance review is the job description. And you can see where this is all just like going full circle. Have the job description, we communicate about it throughout the year, we talk about what's good, what's bad, we have a performance review at the end of the year. Here are the key performance indicators, and I've shown these before, I think in the first webinar, but I'll just show it here again. So right here these are just examples. When you download it, you'll see the different examples. These are HR indicators. So I can go as the manager of admin finance to the HR indicators. I can put in comments right here. So I'm filling this out for my manager, and I can call this probably a quarter of a year is the way to do it. So Q2 2020. I can put in notes here. So this quarter it's good, and then I can put in comments. You can do employee turnover. You can put in notes here. This quarter, it's 0 to 5%, hopefully. Put in comments, employee training. So you build these key indicator forms on the process tools page, and then people go to use them. So I save this back to TouchStone. So if I'm the manager of admin and finance, and my manager, this person here, is preparing for my one-on-one meeting, they could go and run a report of the Q2 key indicators or Q1 indicators and bring that to the meeting so we can discuss it together. Or in the meeting itself, the president, through the dashboard, can go into management review, call up those indicators, and then that's another thing we talk about. So let's go back here again. So that's the key indicators and how it works with these other two processes. This employee coaching and training process, you're going to get our version of this, which comes when you download the library processes. This has work plans in it on training employees with the control panel and management review, which is basically training with the job description. So this is just a how-to in being a manager, how it gives more details on how to train using the tools in TouchStone, using the job description. Then we've got managing and coaching employees through management review. Here's a work plan on giving feedback. So this is just like a step-by-step on some techniques in giving good feedback. So know why the business requires a change in behavior. These are things for a manager to be thinking about, and it gives them a way to communicate it in not a blaming, negative way. Be explicit, clear expectations of what should occur. This is only accomplished if there's a documented process. I can't be explicit and give clear expectations of what should occur if there's no documented or clear way of what should occur. I can't just say to people, you need to do a better job of managing the sales department. You need to be a better leader. I don't get the feeling that you're this, or this makes me think that you're that. All of that stuff is it's fodder for argument and disagreement and agony sometimes. So if I have a clear expectation, explicit, of what should occur, I can not say all of that blaming and my feeling. I have a feeling about this. I can't stand it when people say that. A feeling is good, but when you're giving direct feedback, you can't say, well, I just feel that way, and you always do this, and you never do that. If there's a process, I can say, this is the expectation. This is what it is, the step-by-step. Let's talk about that. And it becomes very explicit and clear. So this is, again, it's just a work plan on how to give feedback. I don't feel like managers need big, expensive management training programs. They don't. It's very clear when you condense it down to the reality, which is if I don't have a documented process to show you what to do, then I have no right to demand that you do it. I don't have a right to do that because I'm not making it clear what you're supposed to do. And managers need to see that. There's coaching documentation forms. Again, there's two versions here. So this helps a manager just prepare for having these conversations. So thinking about the way they're going to communicate it and what they're going to talk about. They can always do that in the one-on-one meeting form, but this makes it just a little bit more formal. So that's the employee coaching and training. If you have other things that you really value for coaching and training, or ways that you want to do that in your business that's important to you, you can build it into this process. So add more to this and then use this to train your managers. So for all of you out there who haven't downloaded these library processes and started to use them with your managers, or for yourself if you're a manager on the line, then do that. Start to use them. If you're feeling overwhelmed by all of this, the best way to combat overwhelm is to take action. That's really the only way. Take action. So maybe just decide you're going to just do this process. Just let go of these for now. Just do this one. Decide how often you want to have one-on-one meetings. Is it once a month? Is it once a week? Is it twice a month? And then implement this process. Just try it out. Just use it. When performance reviews roll around, think about maybe doing it this way, a new way, using this performance review process. Imagine changing the way that you do it and implementing something new. These pictures are from Simon Sinek, and I'll leave you with this because I love this so much. Managers look over our numbers and our results. Leaders look at us. So we're talking about reviewing results and reviewing numbers, but we're talking about doing it in a different way, doing it in a way that's more concrete and explicit, clear and caring. We have a standing offer at Business Design Corp to train managers to use these 5 processes. So any one of you who wants to have a management training and have one of our staff members go over how to use these 5 processes and how to implement them and how to use them in TouchStone, we'll do a webinar for you and we'll sit and we'll talk to your managers about it. That might be a good way to kick it off. So if you're interested in that, send us an email. If you don't have my direct email, remember you can always go here to the Resource Center, and right here under Support Plus, you can send a message saying, yeah, I want a manager training. Next week, we are going to start to talk about documenting processes. This would be a great time to bring any employees on the line that you want to have helping you to document processes. So next week, I'm going to start by going over work plans and checklists. So we'll spend the whole hour talking about technically how to build work plans, how to build the checklist, how to use all the functionality within each of these tools, and then also some tips and techniques on what makes a good work plan, what makes one better, what makes one worse, and then examples of how and when to use checklists. The following week, we'll cover the rest of the process tools. And again, talk about technically how to use and build those tools, and then what makes a good one and what makes one better. So that's all next week. Thanks for coming, everybody. Bye-bye.